have a good time. Are you still a believer in Santa? Because at 7 it's marginal, right? Well, you just...
All right, people, we are back in business. I'm Dave Rubin. This is the Rubin Report. It is January 6th in the year 2025. This is our first live show of the new year. We are fired up. We are ready to roll. I hope you had a good holiday season, a Merry Christmas, a Happy Hanukkah, a great New Year. Hope you ate some stuff. Hope you're not feeling too tight in the waistline. Hope you got to spend some time with some family. We are very fired up and ready to get back into it. I did spend, this was really an extended break that we had here. Obviously, our last live show was on December 19th, and now today's the 6th, so we had like a 2.5 week run there. And I did spend a lot of time thinking about how I want to go about doing the show in this coming year, and seeing how the culture has changed and how so much of what we've done with the wide tent thing worked, and Trump will be president in, basically, 14 days, 2 weeks from tomorrow. Like, these things are all happening and they're real, and what can we do? Do we have to adjust and shift to be a consistently impactful voice amidst all of the craziness? And there's an awful lot of craziness that happened since we've been here, and really it started on New Year's, which we're going to get to all of that. And over the next week, we'll talk a little bit more about some of the directional things that I want to do with the show and all of that stuff. But one of the things that we are going to have to put up with is that although the woke are wounded, although they are on the outs, let's say, of where the culture war is, it's not just going to end overnight. I've talked about how there are movies in the can that take 2 years to make that still have to get through the system, and TV shows and music and all of these things. We know it's just not disappearing. There are still, you've still got the crazies on the Democrat side in Congress, the AOCs and Rashidas and all the rest of it. So there's still going to be this thing there. And the question is, how much should we focus on it? Do we focus on the MSNBC crazies and the View crazies and everything else? And what do you do when you're kind of winning? That's going to be my sort of premise for the year. But before we get to any of this, today is January 6th, and it's a very serious day. Some serious stuff happened a couple of years ago, and I thought we would address it quickly. This will be the only time I address January 6th on the program today. Saw this morning. It's an important piece of information for you. Go.
All right, you ready?
Yep, when you're ready.
Okay. Since the January 6th attack on the US Capitol, when supporters of Donald Trump stormed this building, trying to prevent the election victory of Joe Biden from being certified. On the anniversary. Oh my God. Oh God.
Good. What do I have to add to that? God is good. What can I tell you? Yes, so it's January 6th, zippity dippity. So as we roll into this new year, and as we're winning in the culture wars, and as the left are going crazy and the wokesters and all of the stuff, how do we sort of move forward in a society that's dealing with those tensions, knowing you don't just give up the culture war easily? Well, I saw this video. It's from Bill Maher's podcast. It came out a couple of days ago, and he had Jon Cryer on. Jon Cryer's an actor. He was in, 2 Men and a Fat Baby, or what was that show called with... what was it? Two and a Half Men? Yeah, I don't know. There was a fat kid, and Charlie Sheen was doing blow, and whatever it was. Anyway, he's an actor. He's done some stuff, mostly in the 80s. But he's still very, very woke. And I know it doesn't really matter what actors think. We don't want to get too caught up in that. But I thought this clip quite well illustrates what is now going to broadly happen on the left, where you're going to have some sane people like the Bill Mahers trying to carve out their little space for sanity on that side, which is going to get increasingly more difficult. And then people who are just so in the thing still, yet when confronted with reality, fold faster than a wet paper bag. Enjoy.
They also did a great piece some years ago about a woman in London who was in the Muslim neighborhoods, and they're screaming at her because she's wearing a skirt and stuff like that. And the point of it was, there are places in Western civilizations that are like run not by Western standards, and that doesn't mean they're just different.
Well, yeah, but I mean, there are cultural enclaves everywhere.
Right, but we should agree that women should be able to wear what they want.
Yes.
If you don't agree with that, then you're not a liberal to begin with.
Well,
Women,
yes.
call me a crazy liberal, but I think women should have freedom.
I agree as well.
Okay.
I agree as well.
But they don't in these neighborhoods. It was the 60 Minutes piece that they did.
One could argue that that women don't have the freedom to dress where they are in dress how they want to dress in many places. They used to get catcalled all the time. They used to, there was
Used to.
Well,
we're talking about now.
Well,
yeah, a lot of shit used to happen, but what's going on now in the world? Would you really want to have your wife live in Gaza or any place where no? Well, I mean before
war-torn strip of desert.
No, even before the war, where she would have to cover up.
Well, again, that's not. I don't live there. I'm not. It's not my culture.
But and you won't judge it.
I'm not going to judge it. No, but again, this is not
crazy woke to me.
Okay.
That's where it all went off the rails. When we became so tolerant that we tolerate intolerance. I mean, you would never allow something like that to happen in this country. If they proposed a law tomorrow at the LA City Council, women have to cover their face when they go out. I assume you'd be against that.
Well, yes, I would.
Okay, so first off, I can start the year by saying, Bill, good job. We'd like to see more of that. That's number one. Number two, again, you don't have to care what an actor thinks, and he's not a particularly thoughtful or bright guy, but I thought it's a perfect example of what we have been bludgeoned with for the last 10 years, right? What we have been hit with, which has been a whole bunch of people who don't really think anything through, right? If Jon Cryer for just a moment had thought any of this through, he would realize that he, as a liberal or a progressive or a wokester, wouldn't want his daughter or his wife or his mother in one of these communities that are not, say, that friendly to women or that groom these young girls. We'll get to more on that in the UK in just a bit, or that are raping women or forcing them to wear this or making sure their faces are covered or anything else. But then what he says there is, it's not my culture, I won't judge it. And this is maybe the most obvious example of everything that's gone wrong with the liberals. If everything is equal, if everything is okay, then nothing's good and nothing's bad. And then the bad guys come in. That's what Bill's talking about with the paradox of tolerance, right? Karl Popper's paradox of tolerance. You don't want to be tolerant of intolerance, but the left, as Jordan Peterson often talks about, they don't know when to end. So now I'm going to put that clip aside for a moment, and we're going to shift this to how that very notion that we just discussed right there is now wreaking havoc basically across the world. It's not just happening in the United States, happening in the UK, Canada, and elsewhere. We'll get to that in just a moment. But first, let me talk to you about Privacy Hawk. Did you know your personal data is more vulnerable than you think? Right now, companies and data brokers aren't just collecting and selling your information, they're putting you at risk. From spam emails and robocalls to full-on identity theft, your privacy is under constant attack. But the good news? You can stop it with Privacy Hawk. Privacy Hawk is the most comprehensive solution to find, delete, and protect your data. Here's how it works. Privacy Hawk can run a free scan to see where your personal information is being shared online. It will find and delete your data with one tap and keep monitoring monthly to ensure you're protected. It'll also clean up your inbox by unsubscribing from marketing lists and stopping unwanted data sharing. Privacy Hawk will get real-time alerts if your info is exposed in a data breach or appears on the dark web. Plus, Privacy Hawk's Platinum plan includes identity theft recovery insurance, up to $1 million in live support to guide you if something goes wrong. Don't wait until your information is stolen or leaked. Install the Privacy Hawk app using the link in the description below. Discover where your data is being shared with a free scan and protect yourself by using my promo code Rubin20 for exclusive savings on the Platinum plan. Download now and start protecting your privacy today. All right. So you might be thinking, wait a minute, Dave, you started the show by saying you're going to be thinking about new ways to analyze this stuff and look at this stuff and fight the culture wars, but you started with the clip of Maher, the kind of sane liberal with the bananas lefty. What's different about that? Well, what's different about that is now, as leftism and wokeism and the thin ideas that Jon Cryer just put out there and the lack of backbone to defend women or Western values or liberal ideals, as it becomes exposed more and more and more, it is actually causing governments to fall. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, it looks like he's not going to have a job much longer. But before we get to that, let's just show you a little compilation clip of some of Trudeau's best moments which include often his inability to see good, bad, up, down, left, right, male, female, two-spirit, something, something, etc.
Just a few weeks ago, the United States voted for a second time to not elect its first woman president. Everywhere, women's rights and women's progress is under attack, overtly and subtly. But I want you to know that I am, and always will be, a proud feminist. Too woke? Hey, Pierre Poilievre, it's time for you to wake up.
Growing controversy surrounding an Ottawa high school that played an Arabic language song which has been linked to protests of the Israel-Hamas conflict. It happened during a Remembrance Day ceremony yesterday.
The federal government calls its new passport design a celebration of national identity. The new travel document doesn't include any tributes to veterans. Even an image of Terry Fox is gone.
Ottawa is decriminalizing small amounts of drugs, including opioids, methamphetamines, cocaine, and MDMA.
We've also ensured a better supply of artificial opiates.
We like to say people kind, not necessarily mankind.
A statue of John A. Macdonald toppled by protesters in a Montreal park.
It's time for you to wake up.
Well, Justin, it looks like you'll be waking up. We've got some info from Bloomberg here. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is likely to announce his resignation as leader of the Liberal Party this week, the Globe and Mail reported. Before I give you more on that, I would like to think that on this show, we've been hitting Justin Trudeau pretty hard over the past couple of years. I think he is one of, if not the worst. I always put him in that crew now with Gavin Newsom, sort of like just the most inauthentic fake, as Jordan Peterson always says, like the man cannot utter a single sentence of truth. But to connect this to where we started, when you have someone like a Hollywood actor, it doesn't matter, Jon Cryer, what he thinks really, but it's the idea, oh, well, we won't judge cultures. Well, then when you have 10 years of a guy who won't judge good and bad, who will think that jihadists should be roaming the streets with women, that won't arrest people, that won't arrest people for doing crime, but will freeze Canadian truckers' bank accounts for protesting authoritarian COVID vaccines and lockdowns and all those things. When you get 10 years of that, well, then eventually people get kicked in the balls enough to realize that he is not the good guy in this situation. So now a bit more on what's going on up in Canada. The news was first reported by Globe and Mail on Sunday night, citing three sources. The outlet said that it is unclear when exactly the Liberal Party leader will step down, but a resignation is expected to come before a national caucus meeting on Wednesday. The news comes as Trudeau's popularity continues to dwindle in Canada, which has a national election planned for October 20th of this year. The country continues to suffer from a housing crisis, a declining per capita GDP, and high inflation, among other issues. According to Canadian pollster Angus Reid, Trudeau has a disapproval rate of around 68% as of December 24, with a meager 28% of Canadians supporting him. The potential resignation would also come after Trudeau, who became Prime Minister in 2015, braved a difficult few months in politics. In September, he faced a no-confidence vote in Parliament that later failed, despite efforts from the Conservative Party to remove him from office. On December 16th, Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland announced that she was stepping down from Trudeau's cabinet, dealing a significant blow to the Prime Minister. In her resignation letter, she claimed that the only honest and viable path was to leave the cabinet. Okay, so for those of you that have been watching the show for a while, you know how I feel about Trudeau. You feel the same way about Trudeau. I get a crazy amount of email from people in Canada thanking me for being one of the few people talking about what's been going on up there. That Fox piece didn't even mention the endless jihad that we see in Toronto and really across, and certainly in Montreal and really across the entire country. So, okay, so you might be happy that it sounds like he's about to step down. But now listen to this. This is from Boris Rivkin, because there's some political machinations going on here. He wrote, "The goal here is to push back a general election as far as possible while desperately trying to limit Liberal Party losses. They need to just pass a no confidence motion and call an election." Connor, leave that up for a second. So basically what he's saying here is that if the Liberal Party truly wanted to get rid of Justin Trudeau right now, you don't let him just step down right now, right? What you would want to do is pass a no confidence motion, and then you immediately have a snap election. So what Trudeau is trying to do here by potentially stepping down as head of the party is that he would still be prime minister, and then they still have elections in 6-7 months, whatever it is, and that he would hope that that gives him enough of a window to basically recalibrate and be strong again at this point. So if the Liberals, so although it sounds good, right? It sounds good, he won't be the head of the party, potentially, there may be some play here where he's just trying to buy time to strengthen himself. But let's put Trudeau aside for a moment because he's pretty terrible. Pierre Poilievre is now the head of the Conservative Party in Canada. And Canada usually has had like a crazy lefty party, that's the Liberals, and then a Conservative Party that's just like a little less lefty. But Poilievre seems to be changing that. He did an interview with Jordan Peterson a couple days ago, and Jordan, who is Canadian, of course, now has fled. I mean, I consider him a refugee in some sense to life here in America. He asked Poilievre what Canada did wrong.
When you are trying to put your finger on what went so wrong, so calamitously wrong, what do you think the major contributors were? I mean, there's a lot of hydras whose heads we're encountering at the moment, and I imagine it's relatively difficult to trace a causal pathway, but what did we do wrong as a country?
Well, I mean, it doesn't, what I'm about to say is not a shock to anyone. We have a prime minister who is dedicated to a extremely radical ideology. It is just a rehashed socialism that has been discredited again and again and again throughout the ages. And his basically authoritarian socialism has guided him throughout his entire prime ministership. He believes in a state that controls every aspect of your life, your money, your speech, your thought. He controls the economic, all of the industries of the country. Every time that has been tried, it is a complete disaster. So there's no mystery involved. It is the same old disastrous outcome that results from the same old disastrous policies.
Right.
Okay, well, I love this. We're getting breaking news happening literally as we're doing this story right now. Justin Trudeau has officially resigned as Prime Minister of Canada. So this is obviously ongoing. If we get anything else during the episode today, we've got another 40 minutes or so, we'll obviously get you up to speed. But what Poilievre is saying is nobody should be surprised by any of this. And again, I can link that back to Jon Cryer being afraid to say that some cultures are better than others or that you shouldn't judge. It's like Canada handed the keys to the kingdom of a wonderful country with really amazing people for 10 years to someone who wanted absolute control, who literally wanted to make sure he could control what you say and control what you're doing online and shut down your bank account if you protested him and allow in all sorts of people through their borders. And God knows what those people then are doing when they come from our northern border down into the United States, and allow these insane Hamas jihad rallies and all of these things. So Canada seems to be in a wake-up moment, right? Like there is a chance that things will turn around in Canada. If we get more over the next little bit, we'll let you know. But the guy's not going to go easily. I think we know that much. Like, he's playing politics here for sure. I want to connect what we've talked about to obviously the big story that we missed while we were gone, which was the horrific terrorist attack in New Orleans, and then the Tesla Cybertruck blowing up outside of Trump Hotel in Vegas, and whether there is a connection between these things. And then this grooming scandal, which has been brewing for at least a decade in the UK, which now also has burst forth. We're going to try to combine all of these things, but first a bit from Rumble Premium. When Rumble first started in 2013, they built the platform for the small creator. They didn't censor or have biases. They were fair and treated all creators equally. No one thought platforms would censor political conversation or censor opinions around COVID, but they did. Facebook admitted they fell to pressure from the Biden and Harris administration. Of course, Rumble did not. They held the line. They're attacked daily for giving us a voice to talk to you. They're attacked in corporate media. They're attacked by governments like France. They're attacked by brand advertisers who refuse to work with them. Corporate America is fighting to remove free speech while Rumble is fighting to keep it. Rumble won't survive with brand advertisers alone. They don't get much of it. So watching our show is the number one way we can ask for support from you. But if you really believe in this fight and you have the means, one major way you can help Rumble survive is by joining Rumble Premium. Join the community that believes in the First Amendment and believes in our human right to free speech. Rumble is offering $10 off with promo code Rubin when you purchase an annual subscription. Go to rumble.com/premium/Rubin and use code Rubin. Like I said, if you have the means and believe in the cause, now is the time to join Rumble Premium. If you don't have the means, we're just happy if you watch us right here on Rumble. All right, so just to be totally clear, because this is happening now, it sounds like Justin Trudeau has resigned as party leader and will resign as prime minister once the Liberal Party picks a new prime minister. So obviously this is all in motion right now. We will have more on this, so stay tuned. But I want to connect this to what happens when you have bad people in charge. What happens when you can't say that cultures are different and that we should have borders and nation states exist for a reason, and that, I don't know, keeping women in beekeeper outfits isn't bad, and that, you know, treating minorities poorly, that's not a great thing, et cetera, or that we shouldn't have terrorists on our shores, that, you should have a border and make sure that people are lawful and all of those things. Well, then bad things happen. Of course, there was an unbelievably horrific terrorist attack in New Orleans on January 1st. I mean, what an inauspicious way to start the year. Unfortunately, we've got some info here from the Daily Wire. The truck that was used to commit a terrorist attack in New Orleans French Quarter early on Wednesday morning reportedly came through the U.S. southern border in November. Fox News initially reported that the truck entered the U.S. 2 days ago, but later updated their story to report that the truck crossed from the southern border on November 16th. The suspect plowed into people while driving a white pickup truck that had Texas license plates. The suspect then got out and allegedly started shooting at police before he was immediately killed by law enforcement. At least 10 people were killed in the attack and 35 more people were injured. New Orleans Mayor LaToya Cantrell addressed the incident by calling it a terrorist attack. Moments later, a local FBI spokesperson at the press conference said it was not a terrorist event. However, the FBI released a subsequent statement clarifying that the incident was being investigated as a terrorist attack. This morning, an individual drove a car into a crowd of people on Bourbon Street in New Orleans, killing a number of people and injuring dozens of others, the FBI said. The subject then engaged with local law enforcement and is now deceased. The FBI is the lead investigative agency, and we are working with our partners to investigate this as an act of terrorism. Okay, so I know that because a bunch of this obviously happened a few days ago, you've seen some of this stuff. But the point here is there was immediate confusion, and it seemed as if the FBI was going out of its way to hide the fact that this was likely a terrorist attack and not just a drunk guy who got in a car and drove down Bourbon Street. Now we have a bunch of tweets here from End Wokeness, because now this will add some color to the story. And again, this is what happens when you decide not to defend your culture or defend your borders and basically elect a bunch of morons. New Orleans massacre suspect has been identified as 42-year-old Shamsud Jabbar, and there is the ISIS banner, which was hanging off the truck. And now you can see, there you can see a reporter taking a picture of the ISIS flag right there. And of course, End Wokeness wrote, "Not a terror attack," which was a sarcastic dig at what the FBI had said earlier in the day. Of course, what everything always boils down to in this country is the narrative, right? What is the narrative on these things? Well, how about a little mainstream media narrative on this? It was all about the truck. USA Today, 10 killed and 30 injured as truck crashes into New Orleans New Year's Eve crowd. From YouTube, Fox 35 Orlando, New Orleans tragedy, truck plows into crowd celebrating. CNA, at least 10 to 30 injured after truck drives into large crowd. France 24, truck plows into crowd in New Orleans on deadly terrorist attack. I mean, just absolutely insane, right? Did the truck have a motive? Will we ever know the truck's motive? And then this may be the pinnacle of all the ridiculousness. The Washington Post the next day, truck rams into New Orleans crowd. I mean, just absolutely ridiculous. This was a terrorist attack. We will find out more about this man's motives. There was an ISIS flag. I mean, the truck, it was the truck. No, the truck was the weapon, but what caused someone to do it is the motives, and these were terrorist motives. Now, I want to connect this because We're talking about this tolerance of intolerance, right? And that if you are a Western society, you cannot be tolerant of all of the things that will destroy you from the inside, right? Well, what is one of the things that the left has been doing for the last year and a half, basically? They've been talking about globalizing the Intifada, where you rape women and you behead babies and you kill people, et cetera, et cetera. Well, just hours after the New Orleans terrorist attack, where an ISIS jihadist killed 10 people, injured a couple dozen others, here was a protest in Manhattan. All right, well, I think we're starting to learn what happens when you globalize the Intifada. People start getting plowed over with cars or stabbed or blown up at bus stops, et cetera, et cetera. And we are going to have to get seriously serious about this stuff. And thank God Donald Trump is going to be president in about 2 weeks and bring in Tom Homan so the deportations can begin. Now let's jump over to the televised mental institution known as MSNBC, because you would think that in a situation where 10 innocent lives were killed, you would be focusing on those people. You would really want to figure out what the motives are of the person who did it, rather than just trying desperately to figure out a way how to blame white people. But alas, it is the televised mental institution known as MSNBC.
And last word to you on this, Charles, because this is the challenge, is it's very difficult to feel safe when on top of everything that Mayor Landrieu just said, you also have politicians that have a self-interest in lying about everything because it helps them with a political narrative, not concerned about the human narrative that could actually be really helpful.
And that is the tragedy of all of this, right? There are real tragedies. There will always be crime. You know, unfortunately, what we try to do is to keep the crime as low as possible. All different kinds of people will commit crimes. The problem here is that you jump on one sort of crime, one crime committed by one name that sounds exotic, one brown face, rather than looking at all of the domestic terror that we face, including what the FBI says, is a really big problem, which is young white men in America. We need to look at all of our domestic terrorism and say, this all is a problem.
Indeed, exactly. And it is Americans that we need to be talking about. This is about us. Charles Blow, former New Orleans Mayor Mitch Landrieu, thank you.
Charles Blow, you suck. The idea that you think that we're racializing this because suddenly people are like, oh, that guy's brown and that's really the problem here is so absolutely fucking bananas. We are sick and over you people. Like the fact that they even put him, I get it, that place is just an utter shit show and nobody should be paying attention to it, but that they put him on air, that they put any of these people, that woman still has a show or any of it we're in some sort of, we've jumped the thing. We jumped the shark. We're in some uncharted territory with these people. But you see, and then his next sentence out of his mouth, we shouldn't be focusing on the color of someone's skin because he's brown, but we should be focusing on those young white men. It's like the hypocrisy is off the charts. But again, it gets us to that first clip that we started with. They seem to be unable to make judgment calls at things that we should all be able to make judgment calls of. You are not allowed to plow a car into a group of people on New Year's Eve and just kill people at random. It doesn't matter what skin color you are. And if you do that, if someone's analyzing the news, they shouldn't be focused on your skin color. Nobody is. If it was a white guy that had done it, we would all still be outraged, right? You'd be thrilled, but we would all still be outraged. But this is what they do. They find problems everywhere except where they really exist. So now the other thing that happened along at virtually the same time, it was just a few hours later after the New Orleans attack, was that a Tesla Cybertruck blew up outside of Trump Hotel in Vegas. We've got some info here from ABC Denver. The Colorado Springs resident suspected of detonating a Tesla Cybertruck in front of a Las Vegas hotel, and the Texas man accused of driving a pickup truck into a crowd on Bourbon Street on New Orleans, both served at the same military base, Las Vegas police said Thursday, confirming a report late Wednesday by Denver 7. Matthew Livelsberger is accused of renting a Cybertruck in Colorado Springs, driving it to Nevada, and packing it with fireworks, mortars, and gas cans before exploding it in front of the Trump International Hotel in Vegas Wednesday morning, killing himself and injuring 7 others. Shamsuddin Jabbar is suspected of plowing through a crowd of New Year's revelers in the French Quarter hours earlier, killing at least 15 and injuring dozens more, an attack that sent shockwaves through a famous New Year's destination the morning of a scheduled college playoff football game. Authorities said Thursday the 2 men likely overlapped at Fort Bragg and again in Afghanistan. There was not, however, evidence that suggested the 2 men were assigned to the same unit or even knew each other. So there were all sorts of crazy conspiracy theories running around online because of the Fort Bragg connection. But Fort Bragg houses something like 50,000 soldiers per year on site. We can check the actual numbers on that, but we don't know that they necessarily knew each other. But the point here is we had 2 terrorist attacks, one way or another, whether they were foreign or domestic, whether the guy in New Orleans happened to be black and the other guy happened to be white. We had 2 terrorist attacks to kick off 2025. This is just 1 calendar year later from 2 assassination attempts on the once and future president of the United States. So we better start thinking about this stuff seriously. We better start realizing that the border matters and that culture matters, and that when they say globalize the Intifada, they actually mean it, because otherwise it will all continue to get worse. And we know it is getting worse. And where is it usually getting worse? Well, it's in the blue states and the blue cities. The big story, which we did not cover because we were off, but I won't show you the video, I'll just show you some still images out of New York. I mean, this was just absolutely insane. Breaking. The man arrested, this was right before Christmas, the man arrested for setting a sleeping woman on fire in the New York subway is a Guatemalan migrant. He lit the woman on fire and watched her burn to death inside a Coney Island F train, and that's from the New York Post. He was an illegal Guatemalan migrant. And when you allow people to come in and you say you're going to have sanctuary cities and you allow criminality and you don't defend your police officers and all of the things, what do you get? Literally a woman who was sleeping on the subway was burned alive, and people just walked by and took videos. So there are ripple effects of the tolerance of intolerance in Canada, right? In the US, and now in the UK. And this story's been going on for quite some time. I'm actually very proud of something. We'll show you some videos of this maybe tomorrow or the next couple of days. But over 10 years ago on this show, right when we started doing the long form interview on the Rubin Report, I had Tommy Robinson on the show. Tommy Robinson is, I would say, a British patriot who was one of the few people willing to talk about what was going on with the radical Muslim immigration that was coming into his country and how it was bad for women and it was bad for minorities and all of these things. I got a ton of shit for that 10 years ago. I'm pretty sure YouTube took us down for a little bit, at least demonetized us for a while. It was a huge thing. But finally, 10 years later, this story is bursting forth, largely because because X and Elon are now amplifying it. They can't hide the truth anymore. Listen to, I mean, this is just wild, this grooming scandal. This is also from the Daily Wire. The national scandal in Great Britain, where for years predominantly Pakistani men reportedly groomed and raped young British girls, only to have the government seemingly turn a blind eye, has come to a boil, with many people, including billionaire Elon Musk, publicly calling for the resignation of Labour Prime Minister Keir Starmer. The Labour Party has blocked an investigation into Starmer, who served as head of the Crown Prosecution Service, the CPS. Jess Phillips, Labour's safeguarding minister, insisted that it was for Oldham Council alone to decide whether to launch an investigation into alleged exploitation between 2011 and 2014, The Telegraph reported. In the UK, serious crimes such as rape require the Crown Prosecution Service's approval for the police to charge suspects. Musk wrote this on X. Who was the head of the CPS when the rape gangs were allowed to exploit young girls without facing justice? Keir Starmer, 2008 to 2013. Who is the boss of Jess Phillips right now? Keir Starmer. The real reason she's refusing to investigate the rape gangs is that it would obviously lead to the blaming of Keir Starmer, head of the CPS at the time, who of course now is the Prime Minister of England. So as it stands right now, they believe that there are literally hundreds of thousands, possibly 1 million young girls who were groomed and raped in the UK in the last decade or so by these largely Pakistani immigrants that come in and Guess what? Their culture is different than America. It's just the truth. And they decided not to integrate, not to become part of what we would do here, right? We have the melting pot here. And rape, not good. And it's okay to say that. It's even okay to be a liberal and say that. J.D. Vance was on Tim Dillon's podcast a couple weeks ago. And they were talking not specifically about the grooming situation, but just what has happened to the UK because of endless migration, illegal immigration, and the nonstop jihad.
Thinking about your economy, this is sort of what globalization does, right? And this is what I really worry about. Is like London doesn't feel fully English to me anymore.
No.
Right? New York, of course, is the classic American city.
Yeah.
Over time, I think New York will start to feel less American.
Yeah.
Everything becomes flattened and becomes the same.
Yeah.
And like real diversity actually is like, I'd kind of like to go to a different place and have it be different.
You want Paris to be Paris.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And not have it all just feel the same.
Right.
Right. That is, I think, a diversity that I can get
But
behind.
people see people see financial migration as an opportunity to go into a country, not respect the laws, the culture, set up a profitable business, and then send that money back to another country. It doesn't seem like a sustainable model.
No, and you have no investment in that country. We want people who have investments in a place to care about.
Okay, so is J.D. Vance a racist for wanting countries to be able to defend their culture? The British have a rich culture. They've done some bad things, and the British Empire was there, and you can say what you want about the British, but they like tea, they like cricket. They've done some things. When's the last time you were in London? Go to London. When I was there about a year and a half ago for Jordan Peterson's ARC conference, there are more women in burqas than women wearing, say, a traditional British hat or feather cap or whatever they might wear there. Is that a problem? Think about it for yourself. If you're just walking around and there's most of the women that you see, you can only see their eyes. Is that a problem? What does that do to your culture over time? And is the British culture or the Canadian culture or the American culture worth defending? I think that they are worth defending. And we're going to need more people willing to defend them. And we're going to have to get over that tolerance of intolerance. And we're going to have to get over the bad woke ideas and people like Justin Trudeau and all of those things. And we're also going to have some honest arguments on our side. So I want to connect this to the big story that I did not get involved in the fight over Christmas. I was like, you know what? It's between Christmas and New Year's right now. I'm not fighting with people on Twitter, but there was a massive blowout, largely on the right, about these HB1 visas, which was all launched by a tweet that Vivek Ramaswamy put up. We'll have more on that in just a second. But first, 1775 coffee. Guys, Peaberry coffee isn't your average bean. It's coffee's best-kept secret. Only 5% of coffee beans grow as peaberries, making them denser, more flavorful, and packed with bold energy to kickstart your mornings. This isn't just coffee, it's a richer, more powerful brew. 1775 Peaberry coffee is for those who refuse to compromise. Each bean is hand-picked at high altitudes for that smooth, powerful kick you need to fuel your day. No corporate crap, no woke nonsense, just the best coffee you'll ever taste. And it's not just about the coffee, it's about what it stands for, whether it's Peaberry dark or medium roast or the new mushroom blend. 1775 coffee is about quality, freedom, and living with purpose. Head on over to 1775coffee.com, grab your Peaberry, and join the coffee revolution. Use code Rubin to save 15%. Your mornings deserve better. Brew Rebellion. All right, so obviously a lot of what we're talking about here is about immigration, migration, illegal immigration, borders, nation states, all of those things. And what right do we have, what duty do we have to defend our countries, to say this is how we want to live and we will not allow this type of person to come in and wreck it and everything else. And then, of course, as it pertains to this incoming Trump administration, there is a very wide tent. So you have sort of the America First version of that, which is people that just want American jobs for Americans. And now the wide tent has welcomed in some of the tech people, the Elons, the David Musks, the Vivek Ramaswamy types, who are interested in the HB1 visa, which allows people, it's often people from India, to come in, engineers, really hyper-qualified people to come in and do American jobs, come to America and do American jobs, and then often become American. Now, we'll get into a lot of the specifics around that, but I want to just get into, let's show you first what kicked off an absolutely insane firestorm. And I was watching this during Christmas week, just like, I'm not going to get involved in every little fight. There's a way to just like let things be and then analyze them properly when everyone calms down. It has calmed down a little bit, but here, let me read this tweet from Vivek. The reason top tech companies often hire foreign-born and first-generation engineers over Native Americans isn't because of an innate American IQ deficit, a lazy and wrong explanation. A key part of it comes down to the C word, culture. Tough questions demand tough answers, and if we're really serious about fixing the problem, we have to confront the truth. Our American culture has venerated mediocrity over excellence for way too long, at least since the 90s and likely longer. That doesn't start in college, it starts young. A culture that celebrates the prom queen over the math Olympiad champ or the jock over the valedictorian will not produce the best engineers. A culture that venerates Corey from Boy Meets World or Zack and Slater over Screech and Saved by the Bell or Stefan over Steve Urkel in Family Matters will not produce the best engineers. Fact, I know multiple sets of immigrant parents in the 90s who actively limited how much their kids could watch those TV shows precisely because they promoted mediocrity, and their kids went on to become wildly successful STEM graduates. More movies like Whiplash, fewer reruns of Friends. More math tutoring, fewer sleepovers. More weekend science competitions, fewer Saturday morning cartoons. More books, less TV. More creating, less chillin'. More extracurriculars, less hanging out at the mall. Most normal American parents look skeptically at those kind of parents. More American kids view those kinds of kids with scorn. If you grow up aspiring to normalcy, normalcy is what you will achieve. Now close your eyes and visualize which families you knew in the 1990s or even now who raised their kids according to one model versus the other. Be brutally honest. Normalcy doesn't cut it in a hyper-competitive global market for tech talent. And if we pretend like it does, we'll have our asses handed to us by China. This can be our Sputnik moment. We've awakened from the slumber before and we can do it again. Trump's election hopefully marks the beginning of a golden era in America, but only if our culture fully wakes up. A culture that once again prioritizes achievement over normalcy, excellence over mediocrity, nerdiness over conformity, hard work over laziness. That's the work we have cut out for us rather than wallowing in victimhood and just wishing or legislating alternative hiring practices into existence. I'm confident we can do it. Okay, so that was a lot of text there, but you can see why this then caused an absolute firestorm. So first off, let's just try to delineate the types of people that then responded to this. So you've got the hardcore, say, America First base that does not want, that is very restrictionist altogether when it comes to immigration. It says American jobs should be for Americans. We don't need HB1 visas or anything else. We have enough talent here. I'm not going to take a position for just a moment. I'm just trying to lay out what the arguments would be. So then you have someone that just says American jobs are for Americans. Then the Vivek argument basically is that because our institutions have failed us, we didn't educate properly, Hollywood sucks, all of these things. We've taught generations the wrong things, so we don't have a deep enough pool to staff these high-tech engineering jobs, right? Again, I'm not taking a position on it, I'm just trying to lay out those two things. Then there's another argument that I would probably agree with a little bit more, which is that America is a nation of immigrants. You want immigration here, but you want highly skilled people, and that the system of allowing people to come in probably doesn't work, right? Because we know that plenty of people have come in using H-1B visas and then they're getting, jobs at 7-Eleven and all sorts of other things. So the system itself is being abused, right? And then you're harming Americans in the process. So anyway, that tweet caught fire. And I think there's a lot of reasons for it, beyond just, there's a little fight on the right, like should jobs go to Americans or should we have more even legal immigration? I think a lot of people on the left saw this as a great opportunity to get Trump's America First base to go against the sort of Elon, Vivek, David Sachs tech types. Here's Charlie Kirk, who comes from the deep Trump America First base. Here he is on that.
This is a violation of our social contract. And it sounds good. Let's just let more H-1B workers in. But what about the 23-year-old that went to University of Washington and studied computer science at the UW Computer Science Department? Shouldn't he be given preference above someone who could do the work for far less? It is about priorities. And it's not about what Charlie Kirk wants. It's not about what other people want out there. And I have friends on both sides of this debate. It's very simple. It's what the American people wanted. And the American people overwhelmingly voted for less immigration and the prioritization of the American children and the American worker, not the American oligarch.
Yeah, I'm with Charlie on that completely. That is not to say you don't let anyone in. And that isn't to say, boy, there is some specific job where we can't find enough qualified Americans and we have to bring someone in. But we know that think of every institution has been broken over the last decade, 2 decades, whatever it is. So clearly the H-1B visa program should be looked at again. And are we doing this properly? And is it causing us to bring in a whole bunch of people who we can pay less rather than hiring that 23-year-old kid who was a computer science major who worked hard, did everything right, and now he can't get the job or he has to take less money because we let all these people in. Anyway, it's highly complex. And then just watching everybody over Christmas fight about this, I was just like, man, I am not going to get involved in that. But I think it's now this is going to be one of the challenges of the year. This is what I mentioned at the top of the show, is that I think one of my challenges and one of my goals with this show over the year is going to be to consistently be trying to make sure that when things start getting a little haywire and, oh my God, it seems like Charlie Kirk is taking a position against Vivek. And it was like, well, this is a wide freaking tent. And it's not going to be easy all the time to get all of these people to come around and hug and play kumbaya and all that. I'm going to do my best to make sure that we can keep doing that, because that is the thing that I actually think is truly America first. Eric Weinstein, who I've had on the show many times, who is a lefty, not a Trump guy at all, he had 2 tweets on this that I thought you would find interesting. And he's been talking about this for years. I highly recommend learning about the history of where H-1B came from before getting emotionally invested in it. It was born as a labor tampering conspiracy against American scientists headquartered at the GUIRR and the PRA under Eric Bloch. Now, let me read you the second part, which will help make this make sense. Quote, a growing influx of foreign PhDs into the US labor market will hold down the level of PhD salaries to the extent that the foreign students are attracted to the US doctoral programs as a way of immigrating into the US. And what he's showing there is a photo from the secret NSF study that led to the H-1B visa. So there's something going on here that is a little nefarious, let's say. The idea of the HB1, if you ask most people about it, the idea was that, okay, we don't have enough good people here, so we'll have this special visa to allow hyper-qualified people to come into the United States. But actually, as per Eric's tweet there, this may have had far more to do with forcing wages to be lowered significantly. Now, Elon got in on this fight too, and that's what really caused it to go completely insane. He wrote this: the reason I'm in America, along with so many critical people who built SpaceX, Tesla, and hundreds of other companies that made America strong, is because of H-1B. Take a big step back and F yourself in the face. I will go to war on this issue, the likes of which you cannot possibly comprehend. Now, I do want to say, you guys know I'm a big fan of Elon. I think he's done unbelievable work. The F comment right there, probably not the wisest, because right now he does represent the administration, whether he's fully in the administration or whatever his actual connections are with Doge and everything else. It's like, maybe that was a bit much. Robert Sterling, who's a well-known investor, he was getting into it a bit with Elon. He wrote this: America needs to be a destination for the world's most elite talent, but the H-1B program isn't the way to do that. I'm going to stop posting for now, but let me know if there are any other visualizations that would be helpful. If you made it this far, thanks for reading. Elon responded and said, easily fixed by raising the minimum salary significantly and adding a yearly cost for maintaining the H-1B, making it materially more expensive to hire from overseas than domestically. I've been very clear that the program is broken and needs reform. Okay, I know we're getting a little in the weeds here, but basically the fight is this: do we just keep jobs for Americans, or do we have some program that allows these hyper-skilled people to come in? Most people would say we figure out the combination of those two things, right? I think that's what most sane people would say. And the problem is that the H-1B program has been abused so that tons of people who are not qualified have come in, and that is what is lowering wages. In essence, that's what David Sachs, who will now be Trump's head of crypto an AI said right here. He said, Elon has said that the H-1B visa should be overhauled, that it should focus on exceptional talent in high-value areas, and that the scams of low-paying jobs should end. This is not to say there aren't still differences, but less than it first appeared. Time to move forward as one team. And that is right to me. So I know we've, in some sense, everyone's moved on from this fight at the moment, but I think it was worth noting because it was a huge fight between Christmas and New Year's, a huge fight. Like, oh my God, people were suddenly like, oh, Elon isn't America first. And you see Trump got rolled by the tech guys and everything else. And it's like, no, we're allowed. This is what a healthy political ideology or movement or wide tent, whatever you want to call it, this is what they would be doing. In public, you would have people like Vivek out there, who happens to be of Indian ancestry, out there taking his position. Then you would have Elon out there taking his position, Sachs taking his position. You'd have Eric Weinstein taking his position, who didn't even vote for Trump. But you would, in a healthy political atmosphere, publicly, people would be telling you what you think, and that's what the battle of ideas is. And I think we've been so smashed and smacked with censorship and outrage and everything else that when a healthy battle was actually happening, everyone was freaking out. And that's why I didn't want anything to do with it. Trump was then asked about what his feelings on H-1B are.
Why'd you change your mind on H-1B visas, sir?
I didn't change my mind. I've always felt we have to have the most competent people in our country. We need competent people. We need smart people coming into our country. And we need a lot of people coming in. We're going to have jobs like we've never had before.
But sir, you said you changed your position. You plan to go to the Carter funeral?
All right, so as far as I can tell, Trump's telling the truth there. He did not change his position. His position always has been we have to have a border and we have to have legal immigration and we want the best to come in. Now, if the H-1B system is being abused and we're no longer bringing in the best, we're just bringing in people who are kind of average, but who will work less than our college graduates, thus pushing wages down, well, that's not good. So let's look at that. And I think that we will. Now, the perhaps bigger problem with this fight wasn't just that there was a little fight on the right that kind of went viral and everybody was looking at it. It's what the mainstream media then does with it, because they were very, very excited to make it seem like Elon and Trump were having a falling out, and they want to drive a wedge in that thing as hard as they can, right? Because they have the greatest political leader of our generation in Donald Trump, and they have the greatest tech leader of our generation in Elon Musk working together. And they want to do everything they can to destroy that. Let's roll back to the televised mental institution known as MSNBC.
America is a land of the free, home of the brave, all that good stuff that Elon Musk was tweeting about. However, please don't come for Americans. And I would like, let's be very clear, I would like white Americans to stand up. This is your calling card, honey. Where's your banner? Because they coming for you. They said y'all white and lazy. That's crazy.
Well,
that's
what
crazy.
I
and
find
if
is
I said
interesting.
It, y'all would be coming for me.
Well,
I would never say that because that's insane.
That's the point. What you have happening here is the very thing that white folks have said about black people.
I'm sorry. I just want to know, Vivek was born in the U.S.
For generations. Vivek is now saying about white people, and they don't like it for some reason. Oh, y'all not lazy. Y'all not slow. Y'all not stupid. Well, that's what we've been saying for 400 years, and yet here we are. You still want to not read our history or go through our CRTs and all this
This is
stuff.
why the great Reverend Jesse Jackson talked about the Rainbow Coalition, honey, and people were uniting across
That's
the
right.
working class, okay? And black people and white folks and Latino folks coming together, because the rich people, they're not here for you, and this is how they letting you know, okay? They just let you know. So you want to come on over to the Rainbow Coalition, you come join us, all right?
Should I do this whole thing in that fake accent too? Because that's a fake accent for her, and I guess I can do a fake accent. Like, why not? You know what I mean? Like all kinds of people in the great Rainbow Code. It's so idiotic. I read you the entire statement from Vivek. At any point did he call white people lazy? Now, by the way, I do have a little criticism of Vivek. I think he actually slightly misunderstands what I think true American culture is. You know, when he's talking about, oh, we need more screeches from Saved by the Bell and less Zachs and AC Slaters, it's like, no, you know, I grew up watching Saved by the Bell, right? I was a child of the 80s and the 90s. And it's like, America's not just about the nerd who can get the highest test score. By the way, Screech was extremely annoying Just ask Lisa Turtle. He was, you know, like, you don't just want screeches. You want both. You want the kid that's cool and fun and might have a party on a Saturday night. You want the kid who's good at football, or AC Slater was a wrestler or whatever. Like, America's about all of it. So he's directionally right? Like, have we destroyed meritocracy? Have we taught kids all of the wrong things and all of that? And do you know, I mean, he's right. You know, he made a point. He did something that I do on the show a lot of times when I always say, you person watching this right now, he was saying you in your life, like, you know, people, families that let their kids, that didn't watch as much TV and maybe did more outdoor activities. And then over time, does it work, right? Or that maybe didn't just let the kid run around all summer like a crazy person, but sent them to whatever. But I don't think we need to be sending all of our kids to math camp either. Like, there is some blend that actually is unique to America. America is the thing that makes Rocky, right? America is the thing, like, go get yours. And it's not just like the dorktastic people that have to rule the world, because we'll have a whole bunch of other problems if Screech is running the world. He was in a porn and then he died. That guy, by the way. Didn't he die? He was in a porn, I think. Screech from Saved by the Bell was in a porn. Can I get a confirmation of that? Dustin Diamond. I think he did a porn. You know, it didn't work out that well for him. Yeah, so if that's what Vivek wants, Screech became a porn star, and then he died from drug overdose, I would assume. Anywho, the wide tent, let's show a picture of the wide tent, people, because something happened to one of them. So, of course, you know, here we go. You have Donald Trump, not a traditional Republican. You have Elon Musk, wasn't even voting Republican until 2 years ago. You have Tulsi Gabbard, was a Democrat 6 months ago. You have Vivek, who was running against Trump. You have RFK, the freaking Kennedy name is the Democrat name. And then, of course, right there in the middle, you have Mike Johnson. Well, Mike Johnson was voted Speaker of the House. It was a little wacky over the weekend, but it did happen on Saturday, and we will see if he's able to help push the Trump agenda through, because the Republicans will have a very slim majority. But the Democrats still don't get exactly why they lost. And here's Chuck Schumer, and he's not happy because he did so much for you people, and you idiots don't realize it.
So we did a lot of good things, but all too often, Kristen, we talked about the mechanics of the legislation and the details of the legislation, and we really didn't show the kind of empathy and concern to average, or show enough of it to average working families who didn't realize how much we had done and how much we care for them.
First off, Ronald Reagan, right? 8 scariest words in the English language. I'm from the government. I'm here to help. Like, you didn't do anything for anybody. Oh, you guys spoke. Wait, first off, I'll put my glasses down like this, because why does he wear his glasses like this when he's talking? Because he's talking down to you. He thinks you're down here and you're up there. But what is he saying? It's very uncomfortable. Like this, like, you know, and what he's doing there is basically like, we do stuff for you. No, and we were focused on telling people about policies and everything else. No, you weren't. You were calling us all racist and bigots and morons and trash and garbage and everything else. And Donald Trump was at McDonald's. That's what happened, Chuck. Look, if I was just walking around, this is like a librarian thing. People hate this. If you someone, how you doing? Okay. Stephen A. Smith, who's an interesting guy. He's going to be in studio with us right here tomorrow, live in studio. ESPN guy who's been, basically a liberal his entire life. I count him in that sort of sane liberal Bill Maher thing. I don't think he did not vote for Donald Trump. Do we know? I'll ask him tomorrow. I don't think he did. But he has at least been a sane voice calling out the Democrat BS. And that is what we need. We need less Chuck Schumer like this, and we need more analysis like this.
My big issue is that I'm really, really sick and tired of every time I turn around finding something else that the Democrats have lied about or downplayed or misrepresented along the way. And now here we are yet again finding even more evidence to Donald Trump's claims when he articulated that the process is rigged. You know what I'm getting to the Democratic Party? You know what I'm getting really pissed off about? I'm getting really ticked off at every time they open their mouth about something pertaining to y'all, they seem right.
That is what the sane liberal position should be. So I may not agree with Stephen A. on voting habits or whatever, and we'll get into what our agreements are and disagreements are right here tomorrow. But like the Chuck Schumer version of, we just told the people too much about the details and they don't realize that what we did for them. It's so pandering and disgusting and awful and Fortunately, less and less people are buying it. And what you should have, if you are still a Democrat, I think you're really mistaken. I think your party is in ruins. I think you should want nothing to do with the wokesters, and I think you should join us on this side. However, I would say if you're going to stick it out, then have the righteous indignation that Stephen A. Smith has. Don't be afraid to sit down with people saying completely bananas stuff like Jon Cryer, as Bill Maher did, and call them out on their bullshit right to their face. And then that would be a healthy debate on the left. And then we on the right can have a healthy debate about what these visa programs should look like and what does America First really mean and everything else. Guys, that is our first show for 2025. I said to Phoenix during one of the clips, it took me a little while. I was a little rusty up top, little stiff, but I think we got there at the end. Hope you giggled a little bit, got a little bit of information. I am very glad to be back. We got a whole bunch of surprises coming this year that we're going to be laying out over the next weeks and months and things like that. My full interview, by the way, if you have not seen it yet, we put it up on Thursday and Friday, the clips, but the full of Tony Robbins, which we shot right before the new year, it was genuinely my favorite interview of the year. We did it at his house in West Palm. The guy, he's larger than life, literally and metaphorically. The guy's massive, and his energy and his focus and his passion, it bursts through the screen. It really does. It's just wonderful. So check that out. We got a post-game show coming up in moments. RubinReport.locals.com. Oh, and we didn't say much about the elderly man pretending to be president. So here's just, well, I don't even know what to make of this, but here he is singing.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. Happy birthday.